John, Sunday ticket has a price. Actually, prices on YouTube. The NBA playoffs begin, and everyone got into the Masters last weekend, even single A play-by-players.
Hello, friends. A beautiful Saturday afternoon in Comstock Park. This is inning number 7. Still in the front 9, if you will.
And are we on the back 9 of the Pac-12 deal? That and more.
And we're back. The Marchand and Ourand Sports Media Podcast. I'm Andrew Marchand, sports media columnist for the New York Post. He's John Ourand, the media reporter for the Sports Business Journal. And that was Dan Hasty, Western Michigan Whitecaps single A play-by-player. Got a lot of pub for, putting the chirping birds and the Masters undertones on a play-by-play call at single A. Good job by Hasty. That was fun.
That was great. Gary Thorne, of course, did that for an Orioles telecast. Remember, several years before COVID, the Orioles played a game in front of no fans because there were riots in the city. And that's how Gary Thorne called a play during, I think, a 6th or 7th inning. That was a good one. That was good. All right, who's up? Who's down?
Who's up? Who's down?
All right, Andrew, I'm going to start us off. My who's up is Luis Silberwasser, who runs Warner Brothers Discovery Sports. Everybody is trying to retire Silberwasser and TNT from the NBA negotiations. Now, there's been a narrative over the past several weeks or several months that ESPN is going to keep its rights, of course. NBC could pick up a package, possibly. A package could go to a streamer, Apple, Amazon, YouTube. TNT, in all of these scenarios, is described as an old cable technology. It's in a death spiral from cord cutting. The NBA can't wait to get rid of TNT. Well, listen to some of these viewership stats from this season. The NBA posted its biggest viewer numbers in 4 years on TNT. TNT, for NBA games, had its biggest share in a decade. That's a percentage of people that are actually watching the game. 7 of the 10 most watched games were not on ABC. They were on TNT, and that includes when LeBron broke Kareem's scoring record, the biggest NBA audience of the season. Silberwasser is at an inflection point right now. Warner Brothers Discovery's year of cost cutting is up. He's about to embark on the NBA and NHL playoffs, including the Stanley Cup Finals. So I'm not saying that Silberwasser is definitely going to go and cut the NBA deal, but I am saying that his footing today looks a lot better than it did just a couple of months ago.
You didn't mention the All-Star game being down, but he is up overall. I hear you. Who's up for me? The Masters. CBS is mic'd up. Rory McIlroy, Max Homa. Look, I go in and out in terms of the in-game coaching interviews, in-game player interviews. But I think golf especially, because of kind of the leisurely nature of it between shots, I think it really offers something there where you get some insight. You already get the sounds of the course a lot of times when you overhear stuff. But I do think there is something, especially for the golfer, to hear what these guys are thinking on certain shots, because golf is a somewhat relatable sport. Not that most people, can't play it that well, but they can relate to being on a course, right? You couldn't really be on a football field, most of us. We could be on a golf course, a similar golf course. Now, obviously, we wouldn't shoot the same. So I think it's good that golf is opening up. I think that we could talk about live all day and night, and they had a little run there in terms of how well they did in the top 5 of the leaderboard, but it has impacted golf in terms of opening it up and, in terms of the structure of the PGA, in terms of players being maybe more accessible in situations where they may not have been before in response to live, I think, in part. And so I thought that was really good. So CBS, the Masters, gets my who's up for the mic'd up.
Yeah, and getting to see their personalities, too. It's got to help the telecast. My who's down, Andrew, Chad Steele, the PR director for the Baltimore Ravens. Look, I hate pre-draft press conferences so much. My friend Bo Smolka, we actually went to grade school together in D.C., Blessed Sacrament. He had a column on Press Box Online where he had a Ravens GM, Eric DeCosta, acknowledging that they call this the liar's luncheon, a press conference before the draft. Nobody is going to outline their draft strategy before a draft, but it is a press conference. There are reporters there that are asking questions, and DeCosta, John Harbaugh, who's a Ravens coach, Joe Ortiz, who's the director of player personnel, they're grown-ups. The image of Chad Steele interrupting a question from WJZ's Alex Glaze about Lamar Jackson was not a good image for the team or the league at all. First of all, the question was legitimate. The question basically was, how is the team going to view quarterbacks in the draft, given that they don't know what Lamar Jackson's status is with the team? But to me, it doesn't even matter if the question was legitimate. The question could have been illegitimate. It could have had nothing to do with the draft. The brain trust on the dais, they're mature professionals. I think they could handle it. I mean, that's what a press conference is. It's a bad look for the team. It's a bad look for Steele. It was a bad look for DeCosta and Harbaugh, who had to sit there as somebody sort of is trying to tell them that they're not good enough to answer a question like that. In DeCosta's defense, he did end up answering the question, but the whole thing reeked, and it was a bad show.
Yeah, I agree. They should have expected it too. You got to respect Lamar Jackson questions. It's one of the biggest stories in the NFL. All right, my who's down, Saturday Night Live. I don't know if you saw this, but let's play a little clip. They went into the Angel Reese, Caitlin Clark controversy, and they had Angel Reese, not the actual Angel Reese, but they portrayed Angel Reese. Let's listen to a little bit of the beginning of this.
Here the comment is Angel Reese.
Yeah, the Bayou Barbie is in the building. Louisiana, stand up.
Well, Angel, you had quite a week.
Yeah, I got people big mad.
Okay, I cut it off because the next joke was just like, it's Saturday Night Live, so they can do it, but it was just totally off color. And here's the thing. It was terrible. It was not funny. There's so much opportunity to be funny in that situation. And if you watched it, or if you go on YouTube and watch it again, it's just terrible. It's like there's no humor in it. I will say the good thing, we can talk about this, controversy of Reese and Clark forever, but you can't say it's a bad thing that Saturday Night Live is talking about women's basketball, no matter how they get there. But in this circumstance, yes, it's trash talking. It's nothing that serious, especially what's going on all over the world with, everything that we're all dealing with all the time. A win for college basketball, but a big loss for SNL. Come on, you got to be better than that skit. It's got Angel Reese. I think she could have done a funnier skit than they did.
They need new writers. Can you imagine, though, the Masters, the baseball starting, the NHL and NBA heading to the playoffs, and it's women's college basketball that's getting there. That's what we talked about last episode, Andrew. It's it's a big inflection point for those for that.
It's sport. Definitely a win for them. Loss for SNL. All right, let's move to the topics. Number one, the NFL Sunday Ticket. We talked about Sunday Ticket forever. Gonna go to Apple. Gonna go who knows where. It ends up at YouTube. We had Brian Roloff, number 2 at the NFL. He talked about how they're going to be able to do new things. They are going to have a multi-view look where you can pick 4 games at once and you can watch them at once. But the big news is the pricing. Let's go over it and what you think of it.
Okay, Andrew, the big takeaway from this is anybody that thought that they were going to get a discount on a Sunday Ticket when it went to YouTube is going to be sorely disappointed. And they obviously were not listening to you or me or this podcast over the past couple of months. It's priced as promised as a premium service. So it's a little bit confusing, but basically, if you're a subscriber to YouTube TV, you're going to have to pay $350 in order to get Sunday Ticket, $349 to be exact. If you want Red Zone channel thrown in with that, it's another $40, $389. If you're not a YouTube TV subscriber, it's going to cost $450 for Sunday Ticket or $490 for Sunday Ticket with Red Zone channel. They are offering $100 off all of those prices if you do it in June. And basically within the next month or so, within the next 2 months. But this is a price that is on par or a little bit more than how DirecTV was making the offer. And there are no deals to be had here. Fox and CBS are each paying more than $2 billion per year for the rights to the Sunday afternoon rights, which is basically what the Sunday Ticket is. Already, the NFL has flex scheduling coming in. They are starting international games in different windows, and so they've been stripping out the Sunday afternoon games. So they need to do whatever they can to keep those valuable and keep Fox and CBS paying as much as they are. This was always going to be a high cost premium service, and this doesn't. The pricing really didn't surprise me one bit.
And let me ask you now. I don't know if you can expense this. I think I could probably expense this one, but I'd probably pass it by the boss before I did, because that is a big number. But if you weren't, let's say you can't expense it, okay, you're just a fan, would you be interested in buying this product?
It depends, actually. Am I a fan of the Dallas Cowboys? No, I would have no interest in getting this product, because I'd be able to see all but 2 games.
But let me make it closer to home for you. If you're a Commanders fan, but you moved, so you're not getting the local games, and you're living now in the beautiful city of New York, all right, we don't get the Commanders every week. Would you get this package?
If I'm a Commanders fan in New York and I'm a rabid Commanders fan, yes, I'm making that purchase, and because I want to be able to see all those games. If I'm a Jacksonville Jaguars fan in Kansas City, I'm making that purchase. But if I'm a fan of one of the top teams in the league, the Cowboys, the Steelers, the Packers, but by top teams, I just mean the teams that generate big TV ratings season after season. You don't have to get this, because you see all but 2 or 3 games anyway, and because they're in national windows, either on CBS and Fox or on NBC, ESPN, and Amazon.
Yes, I mean, if you want to see every game and you're out of market, you'd still probably get it, because you're right, you're going to get a lot of those games. And I think, to me, as a Steeler fan, right, I mean, I'm doing my job on Sunday, so I have to watch, I can't just watch the Steelers.
That's what I tell my wife as well, Andrew. Does that work for you when you say that?
It does not. Sometimes it does. It depends. The years that I want to watch all the games, they're going to be on late in the season anyway, right? If they're not good, then I'm not as interested. If the Steelers, they're usually good, but Mike Tomlin is awesome, so they're usually good. But if they weren't, then I wouldn't be that interested. So to me, when that number came out, a little high. Here's the last thing on Sunday Ticket I want to ask you. We talked with Roll Up. He mentioned innovation. Yes, you can pick the 4 teams. Sunday Ticket had it where they picked the 4 teams kind of that you could watch, and that was your grouping of games. Now you'll be able to group what you want for your 4 games, which is good, I think, especially for bettors and maybe fantasy players to be able to see the players and teams that they want to see at that moment. The big question is, I don't think it's coming from what I've heard, but like the single game. You want to watch the Commanders, give us $15 on a Sunday because you're out of market and you don't want the whole package.
We're a long way from that. I don't think that's coming anytime soon. And I think that's the nature of what this package is. It's a premium package. But I also want to do, they're out now, and people love to complain about DirecTV and their stewardship of Sunday Ticket. But if you want to talk about innovation, DirecTV really innovated. They were the ones that came up with the quad box and to start with. They were the first ones to come up with the Red Zone channel. Mm-hmm. It's not as though on DirecTV you're watching it the same way you watched it in 1994 when they started it. It's a totally different, more consumer friendly package today. And I would expect, and given streaming and given YouTube, there are going to be ways that they move that forward as well. But the purchase, the iTunes purchase where you just purchase by game, I just don't see that happening. That's not what this package is. This is a premium price package.
Now we're 80 plus episodes in, so people are starting to get to know us a little better. But John, for those that don't know, he really cut his teeth at the cable, in the cable and satellite world. So when he talks about DirecTV, he bleeds the cable and satellite TV. I think so it's like he can't let go of that. Oh, they did a great job. Nobody liked Sunday Ticket. Nobody liked DirecTV with it. You realize that?
Well, Well, it is funny because we talk a lot about our interviews and how to approach our interviews. And the one thing I wish I had back is when Brian Roloff talked about DirecTV, and I heard from a lot of my old sources back in the day, because I covered when DirecTV got this package. It was like, wow, what kind of package this is? They called me and they were irritated by that. They were like, let us go through all of the innovations that we brought to the Sunday ticket package. So
You let them down, your people.
yeah. I'm just I'm a mouthpiece for them right now. So
There you go. All right, John, let's move to the next topic. It's been a big one for months and months. The Pac-12 deal, the relationship in terms of what it means for the Big 12, the Big 10. You had a really good nugget in your Monday newsletter that comes out every Monday evening from Sports Business Journal, where you reported that, yes, they did talk to the CW, as the Athletic reported, but only one conversation. You kind of didn't think, it didn't sound like you thought that, a deal is likely. Maybe it's possible, but not likely. So where do we stand? Pac-12, the Athletic reported also that now the timeline looks like late spring, early summer for a new deal. They go this fall. They'll still be on ESPN and Fox, but then the next year is when they need a new TV contract. What do you think?
a couple of things on that. One is that the CW did a deal with Live Golf, and they're talking to everybody. But it was a talk that just almost an informational talk. It wasn't. I would never classify it as a negotiation. And sources that I trust very much just say that to say it's unlikely. I think you can put the word extremely in front of unlikely. It's almost certain not to happen that they're going to do a deal with them. The other point of this that I think is really interesting is the timeline. And there's been a timeline that's been offered, where we've bashed through deadlines, and it's almost this sense of urgency that they need to get the deal done. But I can tell you that with the networks that are buying it, they don't feel that urgency.
Wait, which networks are buying it though?
Well, that's what we have to figure out. The networks that they're talking to, because they are still talking to ESPN, they're still talking to Fox. The money isn't exactly where they want it to be, but they're still talking to them. And these networks don't feel that urgency. And if you look back at the Big Ten, they did their blockbuster deal, and it was like right before football season. So there's a sort of cadence and timing that they have, and they're not jumping to the sense of urgency that the Pac-12 feels, and like, we got to get this done and lock our schools in and move forward.
But do they need it? I guess that's what we get. We talked about need and wants, right? And does ESPN need it because they filled up a lot of those windows with Big 12, especially I think the basketball component is sometimes underrated, because when ESPN lost the Big 10, they lost a lot of basketball inventory. And now I think it's pretty inarguable, at the moment at least, that the Big 12 is the best basketball conference in the country. And so, obviously the ACC, with North Carolina, Duke, and just the historic nature of the ACC is still very special. And the Big 10, I mean, where they have 8 teams in there, they're also powerful conference. Like, I'm not demeaning any of those. The Pac-12 is very good, but the Big 12 in terms of success, maybe not as big in names for some of those schools, but in terms of success of late, has been the best conference.
Andrew, North Carolina didn't even make the tournament this year.
It's true, but
that's one of the 2 schools you throw out. I mean, come on.
They were in the final the year before, but you still, North Carolina, Duke, you still think you turn on the TV, you see those light blues, you still are interested in North Carolina.
No, listen,
and also everyone, again, we're 80 plus in. John Ourand, Maryland grad. I mean, that was obvious where that came from.
Carolina refs, they're a real thing. They're a total real thing. I don't think that it's a need or a must have for ESPN, but we had Eric Shanks on the pod at the Super Bowl, and we asked him about the Pac-12, and they're still around if the price comes down. All of a sudden, there's the whole price value equation, and if the price is good, all of a sudden.
But is that good for the conference? Like, we travel in the TV circles. I do think that, again, we're not taking sides on this. I don't know. There's just like Pac-12, Big 12 war online. So we're just reporting. I just think I was told watch Colorado. So I'm just going to, put that out there. Obviously, the Four Corner schools have been ones I think as you push these deals back, and even when you're talking about like, the CW, right? That's not a good move for the Pac-12. Like, just to say that was real, because the thing is, when you make a deal, you always have to think about what's the next deal. And if you're doing a CW deal, what does that mean? Big 12, Big 10, ACC, they're all going to have the relationships with the ESPN, the Foxes, the CBSs, the NBCs, and you're sitting out there with the CW. How do you get better? And do people leave? And then when you talk about the money, and yeah, I agree with you. I think Fox to a lesser extent, but maybe ESPN will listen. I think there's probably a price, probably for both of them. But is that a good price for the Pac-12? Especially it's less than they could have gotten. So I don't know.
I keep quoting our big gets, but we did have Nick Khan who suggested like do a short-term deal. Right now you sort of got outmaneuvered by the Big 12. They got in there. They got the windows on Fox. They got the windows on ESPN, and they took some money out of the market. Do a short-term deal. Wait for the market to settle down. Maybe the digital players are going to come in hard in 3 years. Maybe ESPN will decide it does need the Pac-12 in 3 years, and then try to work that out. The question, like you said, is if that deal and that timeline is going to be good enough to keep the universities placated. Let's go to the next topic. This happens every April, where here in DC, it is like a beautifully sunny day in April, and I'm stuck inside watching the azaleas and the drama and the Masters on ESPN and CBS. I know you watched a lot of it this year. What were your takeaways?
Yeah, I think we talk about Jim Nantz. We've talked about him with the NCAA tournament, and he's, Iron Eagles taking over for him there. And, I've said this for a long time, Iron Eagles better than him there. And then the NFL, I'd say Eagles probably better there as well. But what Nantz is great at is golf. And why is that? So, I try to study, golf is a slower game. It's different type of play-by-play. But the number one reason that Jim Nantz is so good on golf is he's so passionate about it. He loves being there. And I do think this is probably always true, but even especially in our digital age where everyone has an opinion, you have to be as passionate as your audience about the sport you're covering or the topic you're covering. I mean, that's one of the reasons that I wanted to switch from baseball back to sports media. For whatever weird reason, I'm really passionate about sports media. I like talking about this. When we talk offline, I like talking about it. So with Nantz, he's passionate to the highest degree about golf. And then the nature of him, he's more of a host than a play-by-player. And when you're doing the, calling the shots, and, even at the end there with John Rahm, you have time to think about it. You have time to set it up and hit the right notes. That is different when, you're doing college hoops or the NFL, where there's not as many, like he doesn't make calls. That's kind of the difference. His skill level is not as high at those things. And so that's one thing I noticed. Then the other thing I mentioned was the mic'd up stuff. I thought was really good. And then now this became something I don't want to make it a big deal because I don't know for certain. Did they not show the live? Did CBS not show the live golfers as much as the PGA guys? I don't know. You could argue that. I know in New York, Boomer Esiason, who works for CBS, and Greg Giannotti, who they host a show on WFAN, they made a deal about it. Mickelson, yes, of course, it was different than if he had just, was still in good graces with everybody and the fans especially. But he did come from behind, which made it a little bit awkward. They definitely showed him less than they would have. I think, you'd show Mickelson more. But it was a little bit awkward how he came back from behind and all of a sudden was under 8 and kind of in contention if the leaders, faded at the end when he was done. So I give him a little bit of a pass there. But I think overall, enjoyable coverage.
I love your comments. There are like 3 or 4 things I want to touch on. A lot with the Masters, but one, when you talk about passion and you want announcers to have passion, I didn't think I'd only take a week for me to bring this up, Andrew, but last week on the pod, you like Charles Barkley and Kenny Smith, even though they're not overly passionate about the NCAA, and I have to call you out on that right now.
Yep, and of course you're wrong. I mean, one comment doesn't just apply. It's not like some Marchand rules of everything. It's there for different circumstances. Your point, again, we won't belabor it because that was last week. Go back to listen to last week so you want to hear the whole thing. But you said you want more college hoop people on there, and in theory, I agree with you, but the nature of how Turner does college hoops doesn't allow them. They don't have a regular season. CBS has a regular season, but they already have their people, and their people are involved. Jay Wright, Clark Kellogg, those people are involved. And so I think in that circumstance, Barkley and Kenny Smith have grown on me. Initially, I didn't actually like it. I was with you, but because I like that passion. And maybe it's also because I've gotten older and I'm not as I don't watch as much college hoops during the year. I get into it towards the conference tournaments and then March Madness.
That's where we differ, because I watch college.
I think that's the difference.
year.
Yes. So you want that passion, but I think those guys, Barkley especially, is just such a big name and is so good on TV that I think he cuts through, and he's become a part of the tournament.
I was looking forward to seeing what the viewership numbers were for the Masters. I know we people spend so much time and effort on viewership, but this is the first time, you had Live versus the PGA Tour, and I found it to be fascinating. Like it kept me. It didn't get me to tune in because I was going to tune in anyway, but it kept me watching the whole time to see what was going to happen. I think the numbers are going to be muddled because Sunday, they basically had 2 rounds on the Sunday. So it's going to be really difficult to sort of discern, what was what from that'll come out. But I do think that the presence of Live this season has really elevated golf and made casual sports fans enjoy golf a lot more. And I think that you're going to see in all of the majors, you're going to see pretty impressive viewership numbers, not necessarily because people want to see Live versus the PGA Tour like me, but because golf is sort of being talked about much more frequently in casual conversations. A little behind the scenes on the pod here, I was going to do Justin Thomas as my Who's Down, because he was part of the Mic'd Up. You did the Mic'd Up for the Who's Up. Well, Justin Thomas, he did a mic'd up, and then he collapsed, and he didn't make the cut. And I was like, wow, if I'm a golfer, I'm looking at that, and I'm going to be really concerned about whether or not I should do that. I made a couple of calls and was told, don't do that. They're going to continue with these mic'd up going.
I also don't think one has anything to do with it. I think we always like to do that. My famous one is, if Giant fans will remember this, Jeremy Shockey was very demonstrative to Eli Manning if he didn't get the ball. And then Jeremy Shockey got hurt, and the Giants won the Super Bowl. And everyone's like, oh, he's better without Shockey. It's like, yeah, maybe. But that was decided that was the reason. Eli didn't have Shockey in his face. And it's like, Jeremy Shockey's actually a very good player. And perhaps that was right. But we love narratives, and we love deciding as, I think this is where the media does get a bad name a little bit, and deservedly so. It's like, this is the narrative, and that's what happened. And yeah, maybe. But it was just decided that Shockey was not in his face, so Eli played better, which could be correct. People who reported it might have found out, that's what the Giants felt. That's what the players felt. Maybe, but it doesn't mean it's 100% true. John, let's do a couple of quick hits before we get out of here. A quick one today. RSNs. You had something the other day. Is baseball still going out of business, or what are we doing here?
Warner Brothers Discovery, they gave baseball, their teams, for their 4 RSNs, a March 31st deadline to come to a deal, or we're going to file for Chapter 7 liquidation, which is bad news for everybody. They still haven't come to a deal. It's now April 11th. You're listening to this April 12th, but there's a belief on both sides that the Warner Brothers Discovery, they run the AT&T sports nets in Houston, in Denver, in Pittsburgh. They have agreed that they're going to pay the rights fees, and they're going to produce and distribute all the baseball games through the end of the season. Then they're going to walk away from the deal, and the rights are going to revert back to the teams and presumably MLB.
So fans can see their games. And then again, next year, we've talked about this hurricane. The winds start to blow even harder next year. Is that how this is going to work?
Definitely, because all of a sudden we don't know what's going to happen with Diamonds. That they run the Bally Sports RSN. We don't know what's going to happen with their bankruptcy. We don't know what's going to happen with these rights, particularly with the Pirates and with the Rockies. So that it's there are lots of question marks and lots of $1 million deals that are millions of dollars worth of deals that are in the offing here. All right, another quick hitter. The NBA wrapped its regular season, getting ready to go into the playoffs. What are you looking for?
Well, I just think the NBA is in a weird spot, right? We keep talking about the ascension of the digital players who are going to be interested. We believe in the next deal, especially with Amazon, possibly Apple, maybe YouTube, Google, and how Turner wants to keep it. We think ESPN is going to keep it. NBC wants to get involved. But I got to tell you, I feel like the NBA regular season really lacked buzz and really ended with a terrible way with the Mavericks sitting their players with a chance to with the playoffs on the line. That was really odd. It's good to see Mike Bass had a statement from the NBA saying that they're investigating that. Honestly, they should probably the pick would go to the Knicks. Now it won't. And so I don't know. I'd probably maybe reverse that. That to me should be the not any New York bias there. It's just that's why they did it. I just think you just can't have this as a professional league where teams are trying to lose late with a chance to get in the playoffs. And I get it, they haven't played well, but they do have very talented players. Don't you want to get in the tournament and try to make some noise? I would think so. You only get so many bites at the apple with this thing. I get it, they're playing awful. But that's number one. Number two, we've talked about this. And I always will say, when games start late, like the NCAA finals every year, 9:22 seems ridiculous. I really think it should be 8:30. Please change that, CBS Turner. But it's 9:22. They don't put it at 9:22 because they think less people are going to watch, right? Fewer people, for my grammar people out there. Fewer people are going to watch. You sometimes get those emails. Fewer people are going to watch. So I get it that, they are not putting these games like the Knicks start Saturday and then they play whenever. It's like you don't have no idea when these games are. If you're in the business and you cover this stuff, you have to watch it. You have no idea when these games are. I think they need more of a rhythm to their playoffs. What says you?
I think that this is actually an important playoffs for the NBA. This really does remind me of the late 90s when Michael Jordan retired. They have some superstars like LeBron James. I'll still tune in to watch LeBron James. Steph Curry and the Warriors. And they're getting old, and they just need some of these younger players that to just take hold. They're starting to get their footing. You have Giannis up in Milwaukee. You have the Joker in Denver. You have my son's favorite player plays in Philadelphia, Joel Embiid, for goodness sake. So they are starting to get some good personalities and some good play, but they really need to start developing. They're not quite superstars yet, and they have to really start developing that a little bit more.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's always been a star league. And not a team league. I mean, you do have those classic teams like the Lakers and the Celtics, but it's because they've had the stars, the Magics, the Kareems, the Birds, the McHales, the Parishes. That's how this league goes. I think John Morant was going in that direction, and maybe he still will if he can get his off the court stuff all settled. Yeah, you're right. I do think it's a big playoffs, and I just think they need some rhythm. I mean, I think that's the NCAA tournament. There's such a rhythm to that tournament. To the women's tournament too. There's just not a rhythm to these playoffs, and it kind of makes it difficult. I hear that over and over. I don't know what the NBA studies say, but I hear it over and over how there's no rhythm to these games, and you just don't know. And there's 2 days between games, and rest and all that. I get it, but it's just like,
yeah, I don't find that. I don't have that same complaint because I do think each series develops some storylines, and those storylines,
but it takes too long. There should be a rhythm. I get it. They want to be on Thursdays. They want to be on Sunday nights. I get that stuff, but my computer might shut down in 50 seconds. So let me just have some Apple thing. They should figure that out, though, in my opinion.
Mike Bass, a former Who's Down by Andrew Marchand. He should have been your Who's Up this week.
What, for a statement? Come on, Bass. You got to give me more than that. And don't give me ratings that are not. Give me the real ratings. No fake ratings. All right. We don't believe in fake rating. I know you guys are going to make billions of dollars. We don't need fake ratings. All right. Just give me the good. Because then when you give me the good ones, then I understand. Those are good. You give me the bad ones, too. All right. On that note,
let's wrap it up on that note. Thank you, everybody, for listening to the end. Please, as always, if you can rate us, leave a comment. That apparently is very helpful. We read every one. We appreciate it. Shout out to Chris Mason, who already fact-checked us earlier today, and we appreciate that. Thanks, Chris. AC Wyatt is somebody that puts it all together. Thank you, everybody, for listening. Good to see you, Andrew. And when Marchand said that he had 50 seconds left before his computer shuts down, he apparently had 50 seconds left and his computer shut down when we now have a frozen Andrew Marchand on the screen. So I'm taking care of the goodbye. Thanks again for listening, and we will see you next week.
I think it was good. I think you need an and. I didn't write that, but you do need it.
I can only do what's written, Andrew. Come on.
He's like a teleprompter.
Who typed a question mark on the teleprompter?